Dynasty wide receivers are always what we're trying to find for our fantasy rosters. They're the big name values that constantly are adjusting and moving throughout the fantasy season and, of course, in the off season. So we've got a couple buy sells for you here today on the Face Off Sports Network, and we'll get straight. Coach, I know when we were trying to combine our lists here for who we were going to talk about with the buy sell wide receivers, it got really hard because the wide receiver value kind of shifts and it feels like it might be trending back a little bit. What's your thoughts on it? And if you want, you can get us kicked off on your first wide receiver.
Yeah, I don't want to say it's like a mess necessarily, but it's a little bit everywhere, man, with wide receivers this year. It was a really strange year in fantasy this year, and there were names popping up, and guys would have 2 or 3 amazing games and then disappear off the map. QJ is a good example of that. I'm actually going to kick it back to you with your guy Ladd right here. I'm going to let you get us going on a buy with your boy Ladd McConkey.
Yeah, you mentioned QJ had that hot start to begin the year. Ladd kind of some underwhelming games where he was below 10 points 3 out of the first 4 weeks. Middle of the year, he kind of hit a stride, had 4 consecutive games where he was double-digit points, really getting back to things. Then hit a low point, had some good games, had some bad games. I think Ladd's a great opportunity player right now. I mean, he finished as the wide receiver 23 in some formats, I believe wide receiver 30 and a half PPR, just over 11 points per game. So he has the opportunity to still produce with this offense. We've talked about it before in our quarterback video with Justin Herbert. This team had tons of injuries all over the place. Left tackle, right tackle, injuries at the running back position. Herbert had a broke hand. So I think that all kind of impacted the offense and this team as a whole. And I think Ladd, if you watch him on film, he still showed the burst. He still showed the ability to get open. So I like what he can do long term. He's staying on the field 80, 90% of the snaps most weeks. Some weeks using the 75s, but he still was commanding target volume. I mean, if we step back and look, he only had 3 games all season where he had below 6 targets. You can't ask for much better than that. Multiple games with, over that number, of course. But I think Ladd's a guy that just kind of had the perfect storm of a great year 1, not necessarily a great year 2. I think it's going to kind of find its way and level out here in the middle. And he's a guy for me that I would be very comfortable having on my roster. And I think he's someone that his value fits right outside of that top 12 wide receivers or maybe sneaking inside.
Yeah, and I think especially compared to last year at this time, you can get him for significantly less now. That's what makes him the perfect buy, right? You can get him for a significant value right now, I guess you could say, and then have major upside. Like he's going to finish higher than wide receiver 23 next year. Like you said, I mean, to me, he's probably 10 to 15 somewhere next year. That's not out of the realm possibility at all. If you could give up a second round pick or something to go get him, then I would, without a doubt, try and see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, if I had like the 201 and I offered it for Ladd and that person took it, I would run to the bank. Like I'm dead serious. I think Ladd is a perfect candidate to go out there and see what the cost is because I think people are going to be all over the place. I think they're going to be concerned about QJ, concerned about what this offense looks like going forward. Maybe Ladd wasn't necessarily the guy. I mean, we have to remember Keenan Allen was there. Eventually, he's going to leave, and there's just going to be more vacated targets. Obviously, Arondé Gadsden came into the scene and looked like a serviceable tight end and someone that's definitely going to be around in this offense. But in my opinion, Ladd did not regress at all. I'm not concerned in the least, so I would go out there and confidently buy him.
Yeah, he's proven to be dependable, and I think that's only going to be shown even further moving into next year and beyond.
Yeah. Well, Coach, let's get to our next wide receiver. Who you got?
I'm going to move down to a sell right here. I'm going to go with the guy that we're selling right here, and Michael Wilson. I feel like he's sort of the complete opposite of Ladd McConkey. Michael Wilson is a guy that for 2-3 years now I've been saying he's a guy to keep an eye on. I was the guy complaining, you move it or telling everybody to take Michael Wilson, free agent, give up a 3rd round pick, go get Michael Wilson. And he finally produced a little bit for me. The Cardinals being bad helped, right? They were down big in games, so they had to air it out. Jacoby Brissett becoming the quarterback also helped. Marvin Harrison Jr. being out for a significant period of time also helped Michael Wilson produce. All those things were sort of the perfect storm for him to end up being wide receiver 13. Now, do I think Michael Wilson's a decent NFL receiver that will continue to help teams? I do. Is he going to be wide receiver 13? No. I've already moved off Michael Wilson. I moved him for a second-round pick. I would suggest other people doing the same. But to me, I got him for a third. He had a decent year. I've moved off of him for a second. That's been an increase in value for me. That's how I look at it. And what's going to happen in Arizona moving forward? New coach, who the heck's playing quarterback? We don't know what's going to happen with Marv going forward. How is that going to impact Michael Wilson? There's a lot of factors at play here. But to me, it just comes back to the fact that they were getting crap kicked out of them most of the time and had to throw it every snap, which led to Michael Wilson overproducing what he really is.
Yeah, he had 2 games over 30 points where he had 18 and 16 targets, had another game with 11, another game with 10. I mean, just monstrous numbers, a 15 target game. Like, he's not going to get that. I'm totally with you. He's a serviceable player. I mean, average, just over 7 or almost 8 yards a catch, had the 7 touchdowns. That's a great number for him, but he hit 1,000 yards on 78 catches. That's by far the most catches he's ever had. That's more targets than he ever had in his entire career. So I think he's someone that you might be able to capitalize off people thinking it. I know that in the league where you traded him most recently, I'm in that league with you, and it made me laugh because it's like you said, you went and bought him for a third. You figured he could help you in the short term. He did just that, and now you sold him for more than what you bought him for. So I think that's the perfect example of just staying fluid with your dynasty roster. And I mean, Michael Wilson could be a guy that commands significant value from one of your league mates. You just never know.
Yeah, and there is a world where he does it again. Like, we can't act like there's not, because there is that opportunity. I'm just thinking that's not likely.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Risk management.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so I like that, Coach. I'm with you on selling. I mean, he's not going to do what he did this year. Could he be better? Sure, but we're going to have a new coach, a new quarterback possibly. Who the heck knows what's going to happen out there in Arizona? But let's talk about another buy candidate, Coach, and let's talk about Zay Flowers, wide receiver 7 with over 14 points per game. Only the true threat on this entire Ravens wide receiver room. Big-time playmaker, super explosive with the ball in his hands. Maybe the system opens up a little bit with the coaching change we've got upcoming with Harbaugh on his way out. Had a bunch of opportunities to score. Just he's not one of those wide receivers that's going to be floated by those touchdowns. He gets the volume and he gets the yards.
Yeah, and I also sort of think people as a whole, when we talk about the name value, you kind of think Zay Flowers, he's all right. Which allows you the ability to go get him for something less than what he's worth. And I think that's what makes him a perfect buy candidate. If the system opens up, there's going to be a time when it's not just hand the ball to Derrick Henry, and the system opens up a little bit, then his numbers will only get higher.
Yeah, it was a career year for him in receptions with 86, career year for him in yards where he had over 1,200 yards and only 5 touchdowns on the year. So that could certainly get better. All that was done with Lamar's injuries and with Lamar's regression in the passing game, which we kind of talked about in the offseason would happen because the 41 touchdowns was not going to replicate itself. It just simply couldn't. That's not Lamar's game, but it could certainly be better than what he did this past season. So I think Zay Flowers is the perfect candidate to go out there and try and buy. I mean, looking at my rankings, Coach, I think he's a guy that's, like you said, a lot of people sleeping on. He's wide receiver 19 for me. I'm willing to buy him, but I'd probably only do it if I'm on a competing team. I wouldn't want to do it in a retool or rebuild just because he could be phased out, just because at times he's a little bit gimmicky. But I think if you're a competing team, he's a fantastic buy. Go get that stable force that's going to be, a wide receiver that could finish inside of the top 12, but I would be shocked to see him finish outside of the top 20.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think, but if you look at his numbers this year, let's just say he replicates that, but he catches 3 more touchdowns. Well, now he's wide receiver 5.
Yeah.
Or somewhere in there. So, I mean, those things really matter. I think he's just so steady and stable. I think you can go get him for a decent price, and he can be someone that can help you, put you over the top and win a championship.
Yeah, and he had 6 games over 7 receptions. So he's going to be a guy that
Yeah.
gets peppered the ball. They love to use him on those little screens because he's super explosive. So I think he's a perfect player to get for a competing team. Maybe I should be a little more flexible on retools because, at the same time, coach, if we step back and we look, I mean, how old is he? Zay Flowers is only 25 years old. So there's plenty of life still there. He's just about to hit the peak of his career. So I like that opportunity to go out and buy him, coach.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Well, hit us with our next wide receiver.
Okay, I'm gonna stick with our buys here, and I'm gonna talk about a guy that I was preaching this time last year in the offseason, coming into the draft. Like I was a big believer in Luther Burden and his abilities with the ball in his hands. As the season has went with the Chicago Bears, Burden has increased steadily over the course of the season. He finished with 8.5 points per game, but that's really not indicative of the finish of the season for him. Burden really took off near the end. 5 of his last 6 games, he had 6+ targets. He really played well. Ben Johnson loves Luther Burden. That's been very clear in press conferences. I would not be shocked at all if DJ Moore is gone from this offense in the offseason to make more room for it. Really feels like moving forward, it's going to be Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. Those are going to be the 2 main cogs at wide receiver moving forward. So it wouldn't shock me for DJ Moore to be moved on from, and then Luther Burden's role to even increase further next year. Watching him in the playoffs is going to matter too, but his value's low right now, being a young player that he is, and I think now's the perfect time to go get him before he does explode next season.
Yeah, and there's a possibility you can get him a little bit cheaper, maybe throw a second round pick at someone, and basically you're just re-rolling. He was a mid second round pick last year, so you're just saying, I'll give that up and I'll take a guy who's looking like he's trending up in an offense that's getting better with possibly DJ Moore on the move. You mentioned, coach, he finished out the year. 5 of his last 6 games had over 6 targets. Ben Johnson has been extremely vocal about getting him more involved in the passing game, more involved in this offense, because when he gets the ball in his hands, he's a yak monster. There's no doubt about that. He just makes things happen. So I like Luther Burden. He's certainly someone I would go out and try and buy if you can. Check in with that dynasty manager in your league.
Well, if last year's rookie draft could be redrafted again, Luther Burden would be a first-round pick this time around in a rookie draft.
Yeah.
After the way he's produced down the stretch. So if you can move him now you can go get him now for a second. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a guy who was drafted behind a lot of times Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey, sometimes Spatial Tootin. So lots of things to consider, coach. But I think Burden is clearly shown that he's going to be a part of this offense. And if Caleb Williams continues to progress, my word, what could happen with this duo out there with Rome Odunze and Burden, not to mention Colston Loveland, who's looked fantastic down the stretch too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he really does feel like a JMO.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
looks
the part. So we'll see what happens, but let's close it out here, coach, with one more sell. And this is going to be one where we're going to get a lot of flack for this, I think. And I kind of pitched the name. It was one of my favorite people to buy in the offseason. I made us do it on one of the teams we co-manage, lost in the championship. Unfortunate timing for us, but George Pickens, coach. George Pickens had a monster season. Wide receiver 5, he's going to be a free agent. He's going to get signed somewhere. 93 receptions on the season with 137 targets, over 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns, over 15 yards a catch. All the accolades are there, coach. Everything you could possibly want. 17 points per game. Rough ending at the end of the year, though, with 4 out of his last 5 games finishing with less than 10 points. I'm going to capitalize on this roof just being exploded off for George Pickens. I mean, it's insane. I think I've seen him as high as in people's top 10 in their dynasty wide receiver rankings. I personally would not put him that high. I think he's a great player. I've got him at 16, but I would be selling because I think you can use him. Go get a guy like Ladd. Go get a guy like Luther Burden, and you're going to get a plus.
Absolutely. You're going to get a major plus there. George Pickens was a guy that helped get us into the playoffs and a guy that helped get us not beating the playoffs, right? I mean, it's just true. He had a heck of a start to the season, not so great of a finish to the season. That's something people need to realize. I don't want to say he's fallen out of favor, but there's some things in question there. It's going to be worth monitoring when it comes to that Dallas Cowboys franchise in the offseason and how it goes for George Pickens, especially early next season. But like you said, his name value is through the roof. He had a heck of a season overall. Now is the time to capitalize on that. And like you said, like we're all about going and getting a player that's similar in value and a plus with it, just based on the name value alone.
Yeah, and this is a big reason why we build our dynasty rankings and we play within tiers. You find guys that you're comfortable with at or about the same level of a guy like George Pickens. I mean, you're talking about someone like Garrett Wilson, coach, who you mentioned. We'll see what happens with this Jets quarterback room, but you could go get Garrett Wilson and a plus. You could possibly go get Brian Thomas and a plus. Roma Dunze, Lad McConkey. All these names are in similar range as George Pickens because we don't even know where he's going to play. I mean, it's anything's possible. He could end up in Washington, and heck, who knows? Maybe he becomes an alpha somewhere. But at the same time, I think we're talking about a guy who was in a pass-heavy offense with Dallas, with Dak Prescott, who has been just criminally slept on for the last several years as one of the best true passers in the league. And I don't think he's necessarily going to walk into an easy opportunity like that wherever he goes. Or if he ends up staying, he's going to be second fiddle to CD. CD missed a bunch of time this year.
Yeah, now this one's a little more intriguing to me. Do you hang on to him and wait and see where he signs, or do you move him now?
If I had him on my roster and I was looking to sell him, I would gauge the price first, but it does feel like it might be better to hold him until the signing actually happens. So that way you can figure out, where does he go? If he ends up in a spot where he's truly the one and you can move off of him, then you might be able to really exploit true value.
Well, and I'll say this too, and it's not just name value, right? It's team value. And if George Pickens re-signs in Dallas and stays with the Cowboys, I promise you, there's a Cowboy fan in your league that will overpay for George Pickens.
Yep.
And there are more of them in the world than anything. I'm serious, and that is real, and you will be able to move him for even more to that person.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. They tend to overpay for their players because, again, there's more of them. And like you said, Coach, you got to take advantage of that value. And if he ends up re-signing in Dallas, he's gonna be a fine fantasy player going forward. He's going to continue to put up big numbers, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that finishes top 5. That to me feels out of the question. It was already a down year at wide receiver where we lost, a guy like Malik Neighbors. We lost the opportunity to have, Justin Jefferson perform like he had in the past because the offensive play was terrible there. He kind of got shut out. Maybe Pickens is arising. I mean, he's 24 years old, certainly someone to watch going forward, but I just think currently pricing him inside of the top 10 is way too high for me.
Well, especially if you got a full healthy season from CeeDee Lamb and he went back to Dallas, that's going to impact him too, because I don't even think he'd be the top wide receiver on his own team. So
yeah. And I'll just close it out here, Coach, with a few quick names just because I'm curious where you fall. Drake London or George Pickens?
Drake London.
Ted McMillan or George Pickens?
That one's tougher because if George Pickens resigns in Dallas, I like George Pickens better because I like the quarterback better.
Okay. Ladd or Pickens?
Pickens, but I can get Ladd. I'd rather have Ladd and a plus.
Yeah. Garrett Wilson?
Same. I'd rather have Garrett Wilson and a plus.
Last one for you, Nico Collins.
Same, Nico Collins. I mean,
okay,
without a doubt to me.
Yeah, I mean, the exercise here is that you could probably go get more. Again, the monstrous year. People's rankings are all over the place. Not saying that they're for sure going to say, yeah, I'll give up more for George Pickens, but it's certainly possible. So be sure to check out your league mates. Comment down below with what wide receivers you're currently trying to move or are thinking about to add to your team. We've got all sorts of content with positional videos at each position, Coach, for buy, sells, ranking videos coming out, rookie stuff, all down the line, Coach. We're super excited to put this out here for everyone. Be sure to subscribe to the Face Off Sports Network. Check out the Discord. It's free. Subscribe to the Patreon. You can get access to all of our rankings and much, much more. We'll catch you guys in the next one.